So yesterday I got presented with another really interesting question. I wanted to actually share it with everybody because it's something that we see all the time in gyms and when working out on our own. So the question was actually why and the purpose of putting plates underneath your feet, especially your heels, when you're doing leg exercises and more specifically when you're doing full range squats. The answer to that is actually that you should never be putting those plates underneath your heels. A lot of trainers will suggest to do that because they basically just don't know why you're unable to keep your heels down as you're doing squats. So the reason for it is actually because you have very tight hips. Now there's two muscles in particular that will make your hips really tight and unable to go that full range of motion to be able to do a deep squat. One is your hamstrings and the other one of course is your piriformis. So your piriformis is a short little muscle. It runs across your ischium. It goes sideways, basically, right into the lower back region. This muscle is very common to be really tight. A lot of people don't know how to stretch it. A lot of people don't understand what it's used for. But it helps with a lot of those leg motions and movements, gives stability to the hip as well, to the lower back. So it's really important to keep these two particular muscle groups nice and loose to be able to get into that deep squat. Next I'm going to show you a couple stretches, one for the hamstring and one for the piriformis, to actually stretch them out and to take the pressure off of the hips. This is a really good indication if you are doing a squat but able to keep your heels down but your feet turn out to the side, or if you're unable to actually keep your heels down to the ground. These two things are the most common indicators to give you insight that your hips are tight and that you do need to do a couple stretches for them in order to get more of that range of motion. Okay, so the first stretch that I wanted to show you is a simple hamstring stretch. Now, most people, they do it incorrectly because they actually want to stand. Now remember, we're not trying to activate our muscles, but right now we're trying to keep them calm and trying to loosen them up after an exercise or workout. So actually the most effective way to stretch out your hamstrings would be to be sit down. The reason why being seated is much more effective than standing is because when you stand, your body actually has to bear the weight. So your legs are still contracted even though you're trying to stretch them out. So that's maybe why some of you, if you're stretching your hamstrings for a long period of time and not gaining any of that range of motion or becoming more flexible, this could be a really good indication why. So here I have my legs flat against the ground here as much as I can, and I want to reach forward and try and touch my toes. Now for a lot of people, you won't be able to reach that far. You maybe only reach your knees or your shins. Wherever you start is a good place to go, but it doesn't mean that's where you're going to end. Now if you can get all the way to your toes, or even if you reach your knees or your shins, the other step to this is to actually bring your head and chest closer towards your knees. Okay, this is going to help bring the stretch much higher into the hamstrings and closer to the glutes, which will give you a much deeper and better stretch, and that should actually help with a lot of that lower back pain as well. The second stretch that I wanted to show you is called the pigeon stretch. So what you actually want to do is lay your leg out on its side. Okay? From here, I want to bring my chest over my foot and then start bringing my chest down closer to my foot. Okay? What this will do is help stretch the piriformis into the back. Now this is a very common area that's very tight for a lot of people, especially if you have lower back pain and more specifically if you have very tight hips. Now this is going to be a really good stretch and it's very tough. The taller that you are, you're actually going to need to bring your leg up onto a platform. So using a bench, a box jump, stabilizing platform will also be a very good option. But doing it on the floor for a lot of tall people, you may not be able to reach those specific spots and get to the areas that you need to get to. If you need some help with stretching, you can always call a partner or a trainer to help with some PNF stretching and get into the right spots.